known as UNGIS, and the World Summit on Information Society. And it will focus on how the ICTs and the WSIS action lines can help accelerate SDGs, learning from COVID-19 experience to build an inclusive, resilient, and sustainable societies and economies. My colleague Ruth Sidabutar and I, both members of the WSIS team here in the International Telecommunication Union, will be moderating today's session. We'd like to present with you a few house rules. For the smooth running of the session, we would like to give you some guidelines. Please know that during the session, attendees' microphones are muted. If you would like to intervene, please raise your hand. For those unfamiliar with the Zoom platform, the raise hand function is located at the bottom of the participant window. Once you are given the floor, the moderator will unmute your microphone. Once done intervening, please mute your microphone. At the end of the session, if time permits, we intend to take questions through Q&A and chat. You can access the chat and Q&A by clicking the relevant buttons in the bottom bar of the Zoom interface. The session is live streamed on the WSIS Process web page, and it's also recorded and will be available on the UNGIS website soon after the end of the session. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Malcolm Johnson, the Deputy Secretary General of ITU, to deliver his opening remarks. Please, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this high-level political forum side event on ICTs for Wellbeing, Inclusion and Resilience, WSIS Cooperation for Accelerating Progress on the SDGs. And as Vladimir just mentioned, this session is organized by the World Summit on the Information Society, WSIS, and the United Nations Group on the Information Society, UNGIS, which ITU is currently chairing. And I'm pleased to be joined by representatives of the other UNGIS vice chairs from UNESCO, UNCTAD, UNDP, and UNECA. The WSIS Forum is fortunate to have the strong support of all the 30 UN agencies participating in UNGIS, and I'd like to thank them for their contribution to the objectives of the WSIS, which are so important for the achievement of the SDGs. We're honored to have with us today the chairman of the WSIS Forum in 2022, the Minister for Communications and Digital Economy of Nigeria, His Excellency Professor Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, who will be the chairman up until next year's WSIS Forum, and who has agreed to chair a high-level group to review the WSIS process in preparation for the UNGA review in 2025. I'm also pleased that we have a number of other key contributors to the WSIS process with us. Many thanks to you all for being with us today. The fight against the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the emergence of digital technologies, ranging from AI to 5G, that promise to tackle humanity's most pressing challenges and accelerate progress on the UN's SDGs. The pandemic has been a catalyst for digital transformation, especially in education, telehealth, teleworking, and virtual events like this. The pandemic has also shone a light on the deep digital inequalities between and within countries at a time when overall growth is slowing and there are worrying gaps in connectivity and access, especially in the rural and remote communities. As the UN Specialized Agency for ICTs, ITU has worked on many initiatives in collaboration with multiple public and private sector stakeholders and civil society to bring the benefits of these new and innovative technologies to accelerate social, economic, and environmental development. The task is to ensure that the WSIS action lines help put back our attempts to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development on track. This is dependent on the excellent stakeholder cooperation that we enjoy in the WSIS process. And this was very evident at the recent WSIS Forum. The forum brought together more than 1,000 physical participants for the first time since before COVID. And we had at the same time more than 30,000 remote participants in our events, which started on the 15th of March. Over the years, the WSIS community has grown in diversity and strength to provide a platform for an accurate representation of our increasingly digital society and economy. It's also more interactive, and its agenda and program more far-reaching, with new prizes, special initiatives, special tracks on topics of key importance to our digital future. Initiatives such as the creation of the WSIS Stock-Taking Repository for Women in Technology, the WSIS Multi-Stakeholder Alliance on ICTs and Older Persons, and the WSIS Youth Campaigners. These all embody the spirit that the WSIS Forum seeks to build on, ensuring that ICTs are distributed as widely and equitably as possible. As I mentioned, for 2 years, WSIS Forum was virtual. This had a lot of benefit in our drive to make it more diverse and inclusive. So this year we retained the virtual participation with a hybrid format so that those that can participate physically do so, whilst those unable to travel to Geneva can continue to participate remotely. WSIS stakeholders have continued to strengthen the alignment of the WSIS process with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And UNGIS is a great example of existing, well-functioning digital cooperation in the UN system. Effective collaboration within the UN system is very important now that we have so many UN organizations making use of the technology to progress their own specific goals. It will be paramount that we all continue our specific competencies for the common good and pool our resources and make sure we don't duplicate our efforts. So before closing, I'd like to thank UNESCO for its excellent leadership of UNGIS over the last 12 months. And we look forward to working with our colleagues to continue to make UNGIS ever more effective in coordinating and promoting the use of ICTs in the UN system to the benefit of humanity. This collaboration will be important to raise awareness of the importance of the WSIS process and the technology to make the world safer, stronger, more resilient and sustainable, and ultimately to deliver the 2030 Agenda to improve people's well-being without leaving anyone behind. So thank you very much for being with us for this session. Again, many thanks to all the speakers, and I wish you an enjoyable and fruitful exchange. Thank you. Vladimir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, for the energizing remarks at the beginning of the session, also for highlighting the importance of multi-stakeholder cooperation. The success of our initiatives can only be achieved through everyone's collective effort. With that, we're delighted to welcome His Excellency Professor Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, Minister of Communications and Digital Economy of Nigeria, who is the chair of this year's WSIS Forum. Thank you, His Excellency, for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. The Deputy Secretary General of International Telecommunications Union, Mr. Michael Jensen, and also the Assistant Secretary General on Communications and Information of UNESCO, Dr. Tawfiq Jelassi, other important personalities here present and speakers. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It all depends on where you are physically. Firstly, I am highly excited and delighted to be speaking at this United Nations Group of Information Society high-level political forum 2020 site event. The theme of this year, ICT for well-being, inclusion, and resilience, WSIS cooperation for accelerating progress on the Sustainable Development Goals, is very apt. And furthermore, I'm also pleased to interact with other important personalities on this platform at the level of United Nations Group of Information Society. I wanted to be with you physically for this session, but due to some official engagements, I was not able to travel, and it is because of this I decided to join you virtually to be part of this very important discussion and also deliberation. Furthermore, as we all know, that WSIS process, which is also under the United Nations, is very important and essential to the developing and least developed countries. Particularly during our closing ceremony in June 2022, many developing and least developed countries admitted that WSIS process has been supporting them to accelerate and improve when it comes to ICT deployment, adoption, and also usage. Furthermore, the stakeholders that attended the WSIS in the May and June 2022 have also admitted that WSIS spirit, particularly the multi-stakeholder approach of WSIS, is highly commendable because it allows stakeholders from different continents to interact with one another, to share ideas on policy implementation, strategy, and many more. Particularly, the framework being deployed by WSIS has been supporting countries all over the world to ensure inclusion when it comes to ICT. Old people are not left behind. Women are not left behind. People in unserved and underserved areas are not left behind. There are frameworks and models that have been carrying all of them along when it comes to WSIS. Furthermore, the benefits and the essentiality of information and communication technologies cannot be overemphasized. Particularly, if you look at its impact during COVID-19 pandemic, at the peak of COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 2021, the benefits cannot in any way be overemphasized. For example, because of COVID-19, around 1.5 billion students all over the world were at home. In some developed countries, some of them continued their studies virtually from home. In underdeveloped countries, we reached a situation that many of them were at home. They couldn't join their classes virtually due to lack of ICT facilities and internet connectivity. And it is because of this, in many developed countries, that triggered the development of ICT broadband penetration and many more. Even here in Nigeria, we had to come up with a policy that we entitled as the National Policy on Virtual Engagements in the Federal Public Institution. That compelled us to ensure that we have institutionalized virtual engagement in our public institutions. And today, even after a relaxation, it happened that most of our virtual engagements continue, including the Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja. We meet hybrid, some physical and some virtual, to continue. The benefits of ICT cannot be overemphasized. And I think this is a very good avenue for WSIS to continue to be part and parcel of the United Nations Group of Information Society in order to join hands together and ensure that we drive the maximum benefits of ICT for well-being, for inclusion, and also for resilience. Thank you very much for listening. As the chairman of WSIS, I do hope that we will continue to interact and discuss on this platform. That is the chairman WSIS 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your remarks and for all your efforts in chairing WSIS Forum 2022. We all look forward to be working with you and your team towards 2023 and beyond, towards 2025.
Thank you very much.
As you mentioned, it is important to strengthen partnerships and digital cooperation towards achieving goals and targets across 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As one of the WSIS process coordinators, UNESCO has been actively involved in development of information and knowledge societies since the two-phase WSIS summit in 2003 and 2005. Today, we have a pleasure to invite Dr. Tawfiq Jelassi, Assistant Director General for Communication and Information from UNESCO, to provide his remarks. Dr. Jelassi, please go ahead.
Thank you, Vladimir. Dear Minister, dear Deputy Secretary General of the ITU, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. In his report to the UN General Assembly on our common agenda, the UN Secretary General calls for action, ambition, solidarity, and solutions around digital development. To succeed, we must build on what has already been achieved and on the lessons we have learned. UNESCO fully supports the new initiatives that are emerging to help achieve this vision. On the global level, the World Summit on the Information Society is the first digital cooperation model for the UN and the first summit to gather government, civil society, the technical community, the private sector, and international organizations to discuss this digital cooperation in the information society. Since 2006, the annual WSIS Forum has served to steadily build trust around adopting a multi-stakeholder approach to digital cooperation aimed at achieving sustainable development. As such, the WSIS process constitutes a relevant example of a time-tested and inclusive model to ensure engagement, advocacy towards joint and global digital compacts. Its relevance is continuously demonstrated by a record attendance in the WSIS Forum in the past few years. This year, more than 35,000 persons participated online and over 1,000 delegates attended in person. I was pleased to attend in Geneva several high-level sessions and to witness the success of the organized Global Hackathon by UNESCO on the theme of indigenous languages. This event attracted almost 700 coders from 77 countries to support the safeguarding and the promotion of indigenous languages. As you might recall, UNESCO works on behalf of the WSIS multi-stakeholder community to lead the facilitation of 5 action lines: C3 on access to information and knowledge, C8 on cultural diversity and identity, linguistic diversity, and local content, C9 on media, C10 on the ethical dimensions of the information society, as well as e-learning and e-sciences, and C7 as well. All action lines have a cross-cutting focus on gender equality. At the forum this year, UNESCO co-organized several high-level discussions on these fields, covering issues such as ICTs for indigenous language preservation, the ethics of artificial intelligence, the forthcoming education summit, and next year's Global Education Monitoring Report on technology and education. We also discussed how the UN system can support member states in the WSIS Plus 20 review process. I wish to thank the action line facilitators and the high-level panelists for bringing both substance and vigor to these sessions. And also I wish to thank the WSIS Secretariat for making possible in-person participation during the forum's final week. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the WSIS process is becoming more relevant, considering that the majority of the UN development interventions today has a mission-critical digital component. Digital solutions also become crucial to support education and livelihood, and to provide life-saving information in times of crisis. We saw that the needs emerging in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic generated impressive creativity, innovation, and collaboration to expand digital uptake in society. However, it also revealed the digital divides that still exist within and across countries and pushed those left behind even further away. More than 2/3 of school-aged learners, that is about 1.3 billion children, lack access to the internet at home. In what is being called the worst shock to education and learning in recorded history, an estimated 70% of 10-year-olds in low and middle-income countries are today unable to understand a simple written story, 70% compared to 57% before the start of the pandemic. These data came from a recent report co-published by UNESCO, the World Bank, and other key partners. The pre-summit on transforming education, which took place last week at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris, was attended by 2 heads of state, 154 ministers of education, and the ITU Secretary General, Mr. Hulin Zhao. The pre-summit focused, and rightly so, on part of it on discussing digital learning and transformation, and this track will also be focused at the Transformation Education Summit this coming September in New York. High-level events like these, just like the World Press Freedom Day or the International Day for Universal Access to Information, these events can act as catalysts for important milestones in their respective fields. Therefore, we must keep enhancing international cooperation, but also capacity building, monitoring, and foresight. The WSIS process and its diverse and comprehensive action lines can help accelerating progress in this direction by mobilizing relevant stakeholders so they can leverage ICTs for sustainable development. As an international forum, WSIS can express the complementarity and the synergies among the UN family members, and in this context, it can serve as an inspiring model for a future global digital compact. Finally, let me say that WSIS, as a multi-stakeholder mechanism to which UNESCO remains fully committed, this commitment was reiterated by UNESCO member states at our latest General Conference this past November. We look forward to continuing our support to the WSIS Plus 20 review process in collaboration with UN system and other partners. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Jelassi, for reaffirming UNESCO's commitment in the WSIS process and to advance digital cooperation and information and knowledge societies. We are profoundly optimistic about how much further we can go by working together to create many new initiatives in the future with the ongoing support of all stakeholders. We would like now to give the floor to Mr. Torbjörn Fredriksson, Head of E-Commerce and Digital Economy Branch from UNCTAD, Vice Chair of UNGIS and the Action Line Facilitator for WSIS Action Line C7 e-Business, for his remarks.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Honorable Minister DSG Johnson, ADG Jelassi, colleagues and friends, greetings from UNCTAD here in Geneva. Let me start by commending ITU here for organizing this session on behalf of all the UNGIS family. And also especially giving kudos to you for having such a gender-balanced moderation. I think it's an excellent initiative. Good job. Okay, as has already been highlighted, these past 2 years have greatly enhanced the awareness around the world of the importance of digital technologies and solutions. For example, we have witnessed a surge in the use of electronic commerce, telework, telemedicine, online education, and entertainment. Sharing of digital data has also helped to produce new COVID vaccines in record time. New tracing apps were used to monitor the spread of the virus. And the shift to online activities has helped many countries and many economies to become more resilient during the crisis. But great divides, we have also stressed already, still remain within and between countries in the ability to harness digital solutions and digital data. As a consequence, existing divides and inequalities have been accentuated, making it even more urgent for governments and other stakeholders to explore ways together towards creating more inclusive outcomes with the wish of not leaving anyone behind, but we are far from there yet. Many developing countries are looking for support in this context in building capacity to create and capture value in the digital economy, as well as to cope with associated challenges linked to digital transformation. I think there is today no question about the pervasive impact of digitalization on virtually all the Sustainable Development Goals, from Goal 1 on reducing poverty, through Goal 5 on gender equality and Goals 8 and 9 on decent work and economic growth, to Goal 17 on partnership. Against this background, the UN Group on the Information Society, which was created after the second part of the World Summit on the Information Society, offers a unique network of more than 30 UN entities. It provides a mechanism for complementing and adding value to existing programs and projects by facilitating synergies and joint efforts so as to maximize coordinated action, coherence, and effectiveness in our overall support to member states. About half of the agencies participating in UNGIS have also joined the UNCTAD-led E-Trade for All initiative, through which 34 organizations are helping developing countries to harness in particular e-commerce and digital trade for development. This kind of collaborative efforts, they are today needed more than ever. In the aftermath of the pandemic, with strains on public funding and even greater demands from countries trailing behind in the digital readiness for assistance from the international community, it is essential that we avoid duplication of work and that we do our best to seek out effective partnership and seek synergies. With the appointment of the new technology envoy and the planned new digital transformation window of the joint SDG fund, UNCTAD very much looks forward to working with all partners in the coming year with a view to further improving the coordination on how to implement policies at national and international levels that can help to harness e-commerce and the digital economy for sustainable development. In the interest of time, I will conclude here. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Torbjörn, for your many remarks, including the important one on the gender balanced participation, including today's session moderation. We look forward to working with you and colleagues from UNCTAD towards WSIS Plus 20, as more needs to be done to leverage the development potential of digital technologies, as each year becomes an important milestone in implementing WSIS action lines in achieving SDGs.
This meeting is being recorded.
America and the Caribbean and Western Asia played an active role at the World Summit on Information Society held in Geneva in 2003 and Tunis in 2005. The regional commissions were promoting national strategies and regional actions in the development of a global information society ever since. Overall review of the implementation of the WSIS outcomes in 2015 mandates the UN regional commissions to continue their support to implementation of WSIS action lines. Today with us we have the opportunity to hear more about the work of the UN Economic Commission for Africa from Mr. Jean-Paul Adam, Director of Technology, Climate Change and Natural Resources Management Division. Before I invite Mr. Adam, let me inform you all that we will be working closely with our colleagues from UNECA in organizing an event at the African Internet Governance Forum to be held in Malawi later this month on 19th to 21st of July. Please stay tuned for more information and follow WSIS Process social media for updates. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Adam to address the event on behalf of UNECA. Please.
Thank you very much, Vladimir, and the Deputy Secretary General, Your Excellency, the Minister, and dear partners, our colleague vice chairs from the various UN agencies, and all of our partners. It's a great pleasure for UNECA to also participate in this event, highlighting the role of ICTs for well-being, inclusion, and resilience. It has become obvious in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic that the linkage between digitalization and development is essential, and digital transformation is one of the prerequisites for us to be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in these resource-constrained times. In Africa, in the African context, digital financial services in particular are one of the key enablers for new transactions and can also reduce the cost of commerce for business. It also increases the efficiency for financial services providers and is part of the architecture that is being invested in to transform Africa's economies, moving from a commodity export-driven type of economy to an increased value addition investment in services and investment in products that are developed in several countries simultaneously, leveraging the African Continental Free Trade Area. In 2021, Africa accounted for 70% of the total value of mobile money transactions globally. However, many of the systems and platforms, as well as digital financial service providers operating in this space, have the challenge of interoperability with each other. And this is one of the challenges that we want to solve through some of the work that we are doing together. And although mobile internet coverage in the African continent has increased dramatically, there is still a large gap in usage or uptake of connectivity for productive activities. So while 70% of Africa's regional population have availability of mobile internet, less than 25% are using it, resulting in an average uptake gap of almost 50%. Furthermore, according to the 2021 Ibrahim Forum report, 89% of learners in sub-Saharan Africa do not have access to household computers, while 82% lack internet access, and at least 20 million still live in areas not covered by a mobile phone network. Furthermore, the gender disparities in ownership and access to digital devices and services have also limited technology's role in being truly transformative. Some of the work that ECA is doing to increase well-being and resilience across the continent. Firstly, the establishment of a cybersecurity center in Togo. In partnership with the government of Togo, we have recognized that cybersecurity is one of the building blocks of effective digital transformation. The Regional Cybersecurity Center, which also aims to implement the Malabo Convention, is expected to be launched by the end of 2022 and will be aimed at building capacity to minimize cybercrimes and the threats associated across the continent. The center will build capacity among Africa's regulators, researchers, and ICT practitioners. We're also building inclusion through capacity building in our African Girls Can Code training programs. Through these programs, we aim to bridge the digital divide by strengthening girls' coding capabilities. The Digital Center of Excellence, in partnership with member states, has so far trained over 15,000 girls through national and regional coding boot camps, which were organized in different parts of the continent, including online participation. The next coding camp will take place in Namibia in September of this year. We have also strengthened the research capacity across the continent in the digital space through the African Regional Center on Artificial Intelligence, which was launched in Congo, Brazzaville. The Artificial Intelligence Research Center is aimed at improving the resilience of the African continent in providing homegrown solutions to some of the development challenges which are emerging. The ECA Digital Center for Excellence is also working in partnership with the government of Botswana in piloting improved smart agricultural technology implementation for strengthening the livestock economy in Botswana. By creating alternative markets and products, as well as applying smart agricultural technologies for improving livestock quality, the initiative aims to support improvements in agricultural performance and the overall contribution to the economy. Finally, we are also supporting resilience by building platforms for trade that use digital technologies. The African Trade Exchange is aimed at better connecting the producers across the continent with their consumers, and also developing this partnership with financing by linking up with the Afrexim Bank to provide financing for emerging businesses across the continent and allowing a fully circular connection between the availability of financing, the trading platform, the businesses that are producing and consumers. The platform will enable the pooling of procurement of basic commodities to ensure member states have access to scarce supplies in a transparent manner, particularly when faced with the current disruptions to supply chains. The platform will also provide new opportunities for African micro and small and medium enterprises to trade within the continent and better connect them with the global economy. So finally, I would like to reiterate that the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa has full commitment to collaboration, coordination, and cooperation at the national, regional, and international levels to ensure the WSIS process is aligned with the SDGs. And we take the role of Vice Chair very seriously to this end. We must ensure that the outcomes of this process are reflected in the Secretary General's Global Digital Compact. And we look forward to welcoming you all, either in person or virtually, to the Africa Internet Governance Forum, which will take place in Lilongwe, Malawi, from the 19th to the 21st of July. And of course, the whole world will join us at the Internet Governance Forum, which will be held in Africa, in Addis Ababa, from the 28th of November to the 2nd of December this year. As the chair of the WSIS Regional Commission Group for 2022-23, the UN Economic Commission for Africa looks forward to working with all of you for the full implementation of the African Union Digital Transformation Strategy. Thank you very much, and we look forward to the ongoing discussions.
Thank you so much, Jean-Paul, for your remarks, especially to hear the perspective and good initiatives from the region. We look forward to continuing our good collaboration with UNSCA. And as highlighted earlier, WSIS is working closely with the UN regional commissions toward this strength and focus on implementation at the regional level. And it will be wonderful to showcase real implementation projects from the region at the WSIS Forum, providing real-life examples of how ICTs can help achieve the SDGs. Let me now invite Mr. Moshe Kau, Program Management Officer from the UN Technology Bank for Least Developed Countries. This year, in collaboration with the UN Tech Bank, we have launched a newly special track called ICTs for Developing Countries and LDCs. So Moshe, can you provide your insights on how can digital transformation enhance resilience of LDCs to achieving SDGs, and what is the impact of COVID-19 on LDCs in achieving digital transformation and SDGs? Over to you.
Thank you very much, moderator. Excellencies, distinguished guests, panel members, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from across the continent. Allow me first to express our appreciation as the UN Technology Bank for being invited to this important event. As is commonly known, and we have heard from previous speakers, we have also experienced how ICTs are rapidly transforming societies and economies, especially during the last 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic. Digital technologies can and have been leveraged for economic development, inclusion, and building resilience. However, the LDCs, due to their limited infrastructure, human and institutional capacities, and in lack of and limited internet access, they are unable to fully participate in and benefit from the power of modern technologies, including financial technologies and the ICT revolution. On the 2 points that you have just asked me, firstly, it is to enhance the resilience of LDCs in achieving SDGs. There is an important component of enhancing digital skills and increasing access to the internet in order to build the resilience for the LDCs. And in that way, they will be able to achieve the SDGs. The reverse that has already been, that we have seen over the last 2 years due to the pandemic on the LDCs, have also created a need for LDCs to build on their digital skills in order to structurally transform their economies. And therefore, on its part, the Technology Bank, working with different stakeholders, is enhancing science, technology, and innovation capacities, such as providing scholarships on industrial design education, providing fellowships, as well as various capacity building initiatives. The bank is also collaborating with the Turkish Research Institute for a project named the Technology Makers Lab, which is aimed at strengthening youth skills development in LDCs by providing workshops on teaching cutting-edge technological subjects such as robotics, coding, and artificial intelligence. This pilot project will be launched in the last quarter of 2022 in Niger and is aimed at training at least 240 students on an annual basis. The second point that you have also mentioned in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on LDCs. As was mentioned also by the Deputy Secretary General, COVID-19 has demonstrated the inequality, inequity, and the digital divide within and amongst countries, but mostly within the LDCs. Accessibility to the internet is the lowest in the LDCs. As we all know, over 2.9 billion people are not connected to the internet. If the SDG target 9C that had aimed at ensuring internet access to all had been reached, the education of over 1 billion school children would not have been disrupted over the last 2 years. The Honorable Minister also mentioned earlier on that a number of students, particularly in the rural areas, did not have the capabilities of being participating in online schooling. But while there is, it seems like a big challenge, there is also some positiveness in this, in that within the LDCs, only Bangladesh and Bhutan, out of the 46, have made significant progress in realizing SDG target 9C. But I should also mention that, as it has been called in the Doha Program of Action, universal and affordable access to meaningful internet will contribute to building human capacity through skills development, including digital skills, literacy, and expanding professional competencies. From the perspective of well-being of populations in the LDCs, the pandemic also demonstrated the glaring gaps in the health systems, especially in the LDCs. The LDCs should be provided with financial and technical support necessary to strengthen integrated and inclusive national health systems. On our part, the bank, in collaboration with Medtronic Labs, is supporting Bhutan in addressing hearing loss for all 190,000 children of Bhutan through technology and knowledge transfer, enhancing the knowledge and capacity of the clinicians, healthcare workers, and families to provide quantum of care for the children of Bhutan will contribute to the sustainable health systems. And lessons that would be learned from the Bhutan experience will then be shared with Malawi. I should also mention that the Technology Bank, in collaboration with WSIS, will collaborate on the ICTs on the special track on ICTs for least developed, for developing and LDCs. We are going to be exploring a parallel process that will be focusing on safe hearing. In concluding, moderator, I must emphasize that by enhancing science, technology, and innovation capacity, as well as exploiting the full power of ICTs, the LDCs will be digitally transformed and achieve the sustainable development goals. They will graduate with momentum and fully implement the recently adopted Doha Program of Action for the LDCs for the period 2021 to 2030. However, to support the LDCs to achieve these important milestones, the Technology Bank invites the member states, as well as international organizations, as well as foundations and the private sector, to continuously support the LDCs and the Technology Bank in providing voluntary financial and in-kind resources that will enhance the capacity and effectiveness of the technology bank. I thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and looking forward to the further discussions from this important session. Back to you, Vladimir.
Thank you, Moshe. Thank you for being with us today to comment on what my colleague Ruth and you also mentioned. We look forward to strengthen the special track on developing countries and LDCs at the WSIS Forum in the future, as this topic has been more and more proposed by the stakeholders. We also look forward to working with you and your team to further promote various WSIS platforms and many opportunities within the communities and networks coming from developing countries and LDCs. So I invite you and everyone else here to promote this opportunity within your communities and networks, and we hope to receive more proposals to our open consultation process for the WSIS Forum 2023, so that we can plan and design a set of diverse activities to strengthen discussions on how ICTs are playing an enabling role for various development opportunities, including economic, social, environmental, and cultural. So once again, thanks for being with us today. I would now like to welcome Mr. Michael Hoden, CEO of Global Coalition on Aging. GCOA has been working with us closely for many years now on highlighting the importance of ICTs for older persons through our special track, for healthy aging through last year's hackathon and last year's launch of the Healthy Aging Innovation Prize with this year's second edition. It's been a growing success and a very important topic that was also commended by the ITU's WTISD, World Telecommunication Information Society Day, holding the same important topic as its theme. Once again, many outcomes of this year's WSIS Forum 2022 are available on the dedicated website. I invite all of you to explore and learn more about many opportunities that have been produced this year, and we look forward to hearing more from all of you towards next year. One of these outcomes is also a very important trend on intergenerational discussion. It came through several sessions, including both ICTs and youth and ICTs and older person special tracks. So we will be looking forward to increasingly highlight this trend and address it accordingly in the future. Now, Mr. Hoden, I have two questions for you. So please take them as you wish. First is, what's the relationship between the decade of healthy aging and the SDGs? And how do you see the business community's role?
Great. Well, thank you, Vladimir, and thank everyone, and Deputy Secretary General Malcolm Johnson, and all of you for inviting us. We are delighted and proud to be part of this. The Global Coalition on Aging represents the private sector, in particular the business community, and our role in digital technology and communications and information. We like to believe that we also bring forward the importance of innovation in the private sector that can enable a healthier and more active aging. I will come to the questions, but let me give a little background, Vladimir, that many of you may know. I would turn all of our attention to this topic of older persons, the topic of old age, something we all have in common because we all are growing older in one way or another. I will remind us that the great Roman orator Cicero, back in 44 BC, so almost over 2,000 years ago, wrote a little book called a treatise on how to grow old. And he never could have imagined 2,000 years later that growing old would become the norm, which is now where we are in the 21st century. And I'm confident that if his treatise were to be written today, it would include the topics we have here on technology, information, and communication, which are so central to growing old in a healthier way, in a happier way. And the fact that we are now in a moment where this megatrend of aging is so critical, we have been delighted these last 3 years to be a partner with ITU and with WSIS. And as you said, Vladimir, links to overall trends that are taking place. We now have the Decade of Healthy Aging, which of course was declared by the United Nations formally in January of, formally launched in January of 2021. There is the UN Agency on Aging group that includes all 22 agencies of the UN, many of you present here. And we've been able to help with WSIS bring everyone to this place. Within the next couple of decades, there will be 2 billion of us on the planet over 60. Even more profoundly, there will be more old than young in every society on the planet over the next several years. Already the case in societies that are in the developed world. Those that are low and middle income countries are moving to that place and will be there. So it is for that reason that we have been just absolutely delighted to partner with ITU and WSIS, as you said, Vladimir, on the Healthy Aging Innovation Prize and on moving forward this track on older persons and linking it with the track on youth. So we hope to bring it even further into scope in 2023. The business community perhaps is an interesting example of transformation related both to technology and aging and linked explicitly to this Decade of Healthy Aging, which, as you indicated, is part of the Sustainable Development Goals now and working directly in that space. Of our members, I'll give you some examples. Philips, the Dutch-based technology company, has transformed itself from basically a light bulb company. They like to say that next to the sun, they were the largest producers of light on the planet. They've now moved themselves into health tech, providing digital technology for a healthier aging. Home Instead, the global leader in elder care based out of Omaha, Nebraska in the United States, was bought last year by Honor, a technology company. And they then bring high touch and high tech together. We see how that world will be transformed. Bank of America, a financial institution, as we know, with a global footprint based, again, out of the United States, however, has apps, technology that is around financial wellness and links wellness with economic value. We already had references to biomedical companies like, Pfizer or Novartis or Bayer or Amgen or UCB, who are using health technology to advance solutions. And we brought all of that to the panels this year and the last two, and we hope again in 2023. Let me conclude by just, again, thanking this community for inviting us in, for us to be a part. We will invite you to our Silver Economy Forum that we are holding on November 8th and 9th of this year. It will help bring together what we've done at ITU and WSIS over the last 2 years, link what the UN and the WHO are doing on the Decade of Healthy Aging, and bring all of us together in areas from labor market changes to education and all of the elements that lead to a healthier and more active aging. So the SDGs are right in scope here. The business community has been committed to that. And now with the Decade of Healthy Aging, fully engaged. We bring that to the technology side. We are delighted and honored and really proud to be part of this community. And thank you again for working with us in this partnership.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mike. And we all need to make a shared commitment to support the United Nations Decade of Healthy Aging initiative. As our time is running short, I would like now to invite Mr. Liberato C. Bautista, President of the Conference of Non-Governmental Organizations in Consultative Relationship with the United Nations, known as CONGO, to address the two questions. The first is, at the WSIS Forum 2022 held in Geneva, you moderated a session on 30th of May with NGO panelists. Could you please name some of the concerns about ICTs that you have heard from them? The second question is, your particular contributions to elaborating the Tunis agenda has focused on the ethical dimensions, which is WSIS Action Line C10. What ethical challenges should we take into full consideration for ICTs to ensure well-being, inclusion, and resilience? Over to you.
Thank you, Ruth. Excellencies, United Nations System high-level staff, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for giving me and the Conference of NGOs in Consultative Relationship with the United Nations, also known as CONGO, precious minutes to convey views on the topic from an NGO perspective. The close to 600 members of CONGO accredited to the UN continue to impress on me as president of the organization that NGOs are more than stakeholders in the WSIS process and in the multilateral process for that matter. They are the principals whose voice, agency, and well-being must be primordial in building inclusive, resilient, and sustainable societies and economies. The partnership of CONGO with WSIS dates back to the 2003 Tunis and 2005 Geneva conferences. This strong partnership continues strong today, as recently demonstrated in our active participation at the recently concluded WSIS Forum 2022. NGOs produced a strong civil society declaration after Geneva. They insisted then and now that the WSIS process must prosper the values of justice, solidarity, inclusion, resilience, sustainability, peace, and human rights. This leads me to the second question about the ethical challenges we should take into consideration for ICTs to contribute to well-being, inclusion, and resilience. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ICTs for me bear perils, promises, and possibilities, and these raise ethical challenges. I suggest that the digital information and knowledge society we ought to foster must be both fairer and just, inclusive and participatory, efficient and sustainable, secure and peaceable for people and the planet. These are values of moral significance, even as they are already part of normative multilateral frameworks. They underpin the well-being of people and the survival of the planet. These are in keeping with the global ethic already inscribed in Agenda 2030, especially the 17 SDGs. At the core of these ethical values are the voice and agency of human beings who are the conscious producers and consumers of digitalized knowledge and digitized information. Digitalization as a function of information communications technology has enhanced and supplemented our strivings and efforts for human connection, national cohesion, and multilateral collaboration. We must ensure that digitalization does not diminish, but rather enhance these efforts, which are requisites to human and institutional connections. Let me name a few areas of concern by NGOs. Digitalization and human rights. Access to knowledge and information is a human right, intrinsic to one's personhood and to be enjoyed in human community with other human beings. The denial of access to information and knowledge amounts to the denial of human rights to information. The promise and peril of a digitalized society lies at the intersection of the alienation of warm-blooded people and a living planet, and the cold, digitized data and technologies that codify our lives, our human activities, and planetary events, including climate change. Second, digitalization and peace. The role of digitalization in fostering peace bears reinforcing. The technologies for war and warmongering are far more developed and lethal than the technologies for peace and life. We must reinforce our efforts and resolve to meet the SDG 16 targets that are about promoting peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development and more. The promise and peril of digitalization lies at the junctions of the large divide between the architecture of ICT for peace and ICT for war. Third, digitalization and multilateralism. Global digital collaboration is key to tackling both lingering and emerging crises. This is true for historic injustices like slavery, colonialism, and racism, as it is also for today's crisis and pandemics in health, in climate, in migration, in race, the pandemic of violence, and more. These lingering and emerging crises must be tackled well and justly, lest digital society becomes not the handmaiden of sustainable development, but the harbinger of assured destruction of both peoples and the planet. And lastly, digitalization and democracy. The report of the UN Secretary General's high-level panel on digital cooperation is a starting point for the consideration of what a digital future for all means, for our future life together, for the future of work, of data, of social media, and of cyberspace. At the crux of democracy is access to all that enhances human life, common public goods already provided for by civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. The promise and peril of a digitalized society lies at the visible and palpable uses of ICTs for the violation of human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, ICTs must be at the service of a global civics that foster well-being, inclusivity, and resilience. We must promote global citizenship education that includes digital education, that increases hope and decreases fear in a time of intersecting pandemics. We must refuse digitalization as a purveyor of the evils that we have come to know in our society today. Digitalization must be a vessel for global citizenship and robust multilateralism. It bears repeating. Knowledge is power. A just information society is one where knowledge is shared justly, equitably, and peaceably. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bautista, for sharing important notes on the ethical dimension of the information society. We look forward to be hearing more from you. You were very active this year's WSIS Forum 2022, and we hope to see you back next year. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving ahead. Just before the closing, we have our dear Miss Mei Lin Feng, Chair and co-founder of the People-Centered Internet, and also the WSIS Gender Trendsetter, to give us her messages on the two questions we have prepared. Why is WSIS important in advancing ICTs for resilience? And what is the magic of cooperation for achieving the UN SDGs? Please, Mei Lin.
I'm delighted to be here. I'm honored to be in the company of giants. You are leading the charge to a better future. Recently, my organization, People-Centered Internet, was part of Think 7, the G7 process, bringing policy briefs to the G7, and we contributed to 10 out of the 70 policy briefs presented to the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. I look forward to how the WSIS process and the G7 process can actually bring digital in such a way that it's ICT for the people, by the people, with the people. I believe the WSIS process will be key to this. There's a growing realization that merely throwing money at the problem will not achieve the WSIS action lines or the SDGs. But remember, in the family, women pull off miracles to feed, clothe, and shelter their family. In similar fashion, I want to remind you that gender mainstreaming is a woefully underutilized energy source for bridging the digital divide in a safe, fair, and inclusive way. My own story began in Singapore. I then went to Australia, MIT, Silicon Valley. I'm one of the pioneers of CRM, the customer relationship management. So I've been deeply embedded in technology. But as a 14-year-old in Singapore, I had a dream. that in every village, everywhere, young people could see the opportunity to contribute and most importantly, realize that opportunity. We have a parallel demand and supply issue. We have to raise hopes in ways that we can fulfill them. Education without internet access will cause despair in our young people and women. Internet access without education can create conflict. I am truly and deeply inspired by the vision of His Excellency, the Minister from Nigeria, the Chair of WSIS. He stepped forward. He said, I adopt all the recommendations. He said, I'm going to stay chair until the next WSIS because we need to act. Yes, I cheer that on, but how we act matters. Can we learn from what has worked? I want to remind us of how the internet spread originally. It was fueled by friendship. It's easy to forget that now that for-profit ventures have taken over so much. But NRENS, the National Research and Education Networks, was a scaffolding that is still in place and can be harnessed, where professors, researchers spread intellectual contribution and cooperation. Academic and research institutions are the intellectual treasury of every country. Let's go back to the internet genesis and tap the NREN scaffolding to achieve the WSIS action lines and the SDGs. We can have university students create competitions within schools around every university on building resilient communities, on applying digital finance. Indeed, we can achieve all of this, but we must overcome the barriers. And who better to enlist than the women and young people who are standing by the sidelines waiting to be asked? We can do much more to deliberately harness the energy, commitment, and passion of gender mainstreaming to bridge the digital divide. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maylene. Thank you for your brief, concise, and always inspirational message. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the closing of this session, and before I invite Mr. Malcolm Johnson, I would just like to also note the presence of our colleagues from UNDP, Ms. Minerva Noero Belek and Gitanjali Shah, who has joined us with great connectivity at the foothills of the Himalayas. Now, please, Mr. Johnson, I invite you to provide the closing remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Vladimir. Thanks to you and Ruth for moderating the session, and many thanks to all the speakers, especially, of course, the Honourable Chair of WSIS and my UN colleagues, especially Dr. Jelassi, previous Chair of the UNGIS, and the other UNGIS Vice Chairs for being with us. I'm sure that participants have found the session very informative. UNGIS agreed at its last meeting in June to work closely together to raise awareness of the important role of WSIS and UNGIS in delivering on the WSIS action lines, and through that the implementation of the SDGs. And I'm sure this session has certainly done that. You will have seen that WSIS is not just a talking shop. It brings real on-the-ground benefits to people around the world. And I've been fortunate enough to see many such examples. So thank you all very much for being with us. And I look forward to your continued support to WSIS. Thank you and good day.
Thank you, Malcolm, and thank you all for being with us today. As I mentioned, the recording and the outcomes of this session will be available at the UNGIS website, and I invite all of you to follow and share and promote the work that you and the WSIS platforms are doing for the societies around the world. So once again, thank you and greetings from Geneva.